Ladies and gentlemen, it is time on my phone, 1:11, and I hereby call this meeting to order. And let's please begin with roll call of board members. We'll begin with Commissioner Coppola.
Commissioner Coppola, present. Ludlow, Kevin Ludlow from Oneida County.
Commissioner Julie Smith, present.
Ellen Alexander, present.
Commissioner William Smith, present.
Commissioner Christina Hernandez, present.
Chairwoman Tina Stanford.
Commissioner Ferguson, present.
Thank you. And we do have some excused absence to report. Commissioners Krangle, Halliday, Sharkey, and Thompson, and we do expect Commissioner Halliday shortly. So we'll begin. As everyone, before we do that, the non-commissioners in the room, if you would just state your name for the record.
Talissa Freeman Ruffin.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Terry Tracy, Counsel to the Parole Board.
And at the back table, please.
Ms. Vogt, Jill Faison, Assistant Counsel. Lori Fisher, Executive Assistant.
And sir, working our camera today.
Kent Wyans, Australian Academy.
Hi, Mr. Wyant. Thank you for helping us out today. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting, December 15th of 2014? And if so, are there any recommended corrections, additions? Just so you know, I try to look them over myself before they're published. You need more time, or someone have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion to accept made by Commissioner Coppola, second by Commissioner Alexander. Are there any need for discussion or any questions? All in?
Abstain.
Okay.
I wasn't here.
All right. All in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay. And Commissioner Ferguson abstains. Thank you. All right. We have no members of the general public in attendance today, so we're going to proceed with our old business. Probably fourth of our group attended the board training that we were able to accomplish before the end of the year on board actions. It was very good. Because it was the first time we did it, trying to work the kinks out, we didn't record it. So I'd like to set another session in the near future for as many of us who weren't able to attend that one. It worked out pretty well by video conference, but for a snag we ran into with our fifth floor video conferencing capability at the 40th Street office. We were able to video conference to 3 locations, or were you in New York that day?
No, I was in Binghamton.
Okay, so we were Binghamton, Albany, and New York City. So that worked out pretty well. Talissa worked with our IT staff to make sure the connections for any of the area offices that we needed to utilize, including New Rochelle, were operational. So we can do it from wherever our home offices are at your convenience. I've been trying to plan these for Mondays, obviously when we don't have board business meetings, Thursdays or Fridays. And so I'd like to try to keep in line with that for the sake of our travel schedules. And again, set that one up. I think we could get that one going pretty quickly because we've already had it once. And our Deputy Counsel, Mr. Philbrick, presented, and Tim O'Brien sent a member of his staff to present from the field side the issues that we needed to cover. And I thought it went very well. We asked questions based on real samples and learned a lot and had some fruitful discussions. So I'd really like to see all of us have the advantage of attending a session on board training, board actions, but also we talked about sex offender field work as well as conditions that would be helpful for us. We've talked about immigration issues, deportation as an area. So we need to get going again. Now that the holidays have passed, the bad weather hopefully is behind us. We're back on a statewide rotation of travel. But as I said, you don't even need to be in travel status to do these trainings. I'd really like to get going again. And maybe even plan one probably as soon as April. So in keeping with vacations of people who haven't had that training, I'll just try to pick a date when most of the people who haven't had that particular training might be available, give you a couple alternates, send it out by email. And again, if we could pick up at least another quarter of our group, maybe the balance of our group that are in active service, that would be great. And I'll start to plan the next training. And probably that one will be on sex offender conditions because that's really a hot topic. In fact, we have some executive session conversation about that. And our new executive assistant to the board also has run into some issues that I think need our attention. So the more we know, the better we'll be able to proceed with sex offender conditions. Also, our board member who is leading the effort to keep our accreditation up to standards, Commissioner Alexander, has kindly provided a copy of the form, which you should all have in front of you at the bottom of your packet. We've given you a couple pages because anytime you go to any training, if you can bring the agenda back, some certification, if they provide one that they sign off on, exactly. Those of us who do CLEs can use that as a second page to the signature sheet. But you might go to any other training. It doesn't have to be presented for CLE credits. It could be a training that you attend as part of some other symposium or informational event. But if it's related to our work, you can get credit for it through the training academy. So we encourage you to complete those forms every time so that we can all be up to the standard of 40 hours a year of training that we require for our accreditation.
So would the best way for everyone to do it is, there's been some emails about sending it to the training academy and to your office. Could we ask everybody to send them to the 97 Central?
Exactly.
And then they could all be taken, once a month, forwarded on to the training academy. Absolutely.
As you send in your travel claims, attach that or send them in the same fashion. Talissa then can keep a track of our hours for our own records, and then we'll forward them to the training academy so that we'll know how people are doing. And if you come across a training that you think is particularly informative, please don't hesitate to share it with the rest of us too. If it's something that can be done online, or if it's something that needs to be done in person, you never know. If we're traveling in that area, we may want to take advantage of that training. So even if it's something that you come across that you can't attend, but you think it's something that we might find useful, if you share that information again with Talissa or Lori Fisher, then she can one of them can disseminate the information to the rest of the board, and we can all benefit from it and get credit for it. If there's anything else on training, I'll move forward to accreditation. Okay. I'm going to give Commissioner Alexander the floor for a few minutes to see, just where we're at today.
Well, we were lucky enough to have Janice Sarvis with our office for 3 months, and she was able to do a lot of work on accreditation. So I am incredibly thankful that the fellow program exists and that she was able to do that. Just in broad strokes, I think the 3 areas where we're most vulnerable for accreditation are things where anything that has to do with our interviews or board actions, we're awesome on. I mean, there's really nothing missing. We're able to get those sorts of information. In terms of revocations, Patty O'Malley does a great job with that, and there's no issues there. The three areas which I think concern me is, one is training, making sure we all have our 40 hours and that we have examples to show of that. The second issue is there are some standards about site visits to prisons or facilities, and we need to make sure that somebody or some of us accomplish that in 2015. I don't think we have any scheduled yet. And then the third area is things that we don't have as much control over. Some research standards, NYS standards, those are more institutional, and we're going to have to figure out how to meet it. Other areas are when we interact with DOC, with docs, making sure that we're involved in sort of general criminal justice, public policy. So if you're doing any of these things, please let us know, or Lori know, or Commissioner Hernandez, and we'll make sure it gets in the folders and we're getting credit for the things we're already doing.
And if you have any specific ideas in terms of, when I think of particularly site visits to facilities, we may want to go as a large group or a small group to view programs in action that we're particularly interested in, or if we get a sense that a particular facility has an excellent program that we might want to learn more about as it relates to the inmates that come before us that speak about their participation in certain programs, we might want to do a site visit for that purpose. Maybe to learn something more about the disciplinary process. I don't know. It could be anything of our choosing, really. So if you have ideas for things that you'd like to highlight or to use for the purpose of site visits, then we can discuss it at our meetings, share the information with Lori Fisher, myself, and we'll just plan it and do it. And then again, that'll help us with that standard for accreditation purposes, because we will be audited this fall will be our audit, and they'll be going back. Actually, it will be 4 years by the time they come this fall, but we're primarily responsible for probably the last 3, most significantly. At least that's what we've been told. Okay. Anything else on accreditation? Any questions?
Accreditation training, I guess. I don't know if we're about time to maybe do a second phase to what Lori Elovich, what was it, Jennifer? Lori, was that the other one we did the training with, Jennifer?
Yes, Serena.
Arena, and that was another person as well who's left. But, I mean, I don't know what everybody else's findings are, but looking at some of the post-board reports, there's always at least some type of issues that maybe we should have a second follow-up to it, because I think there's definitely a need for improvement. There's definitely some backsliding in terms of the progress we thought we made. The other thing is for the first time next month on Thursday, April 16th, if anybody's going to be around and wants to attend, I'm going to be doing the CLE that we've created for a group of judges. And I would encourage particularly the attorneys, I know Kevin, Sharkey, Elovich, myself, that maybe it's something we should consider to try to do statewide, just to get more people involved in understanding of how the parole board process works and the revocation process works. All the officers now are calling back for a second presentation that I did either a year or 2 years ago. We have Staten Island, and we have a defense bar that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months. So there's progress. When people hear about it, they want to take it and they want to know about it, because not a lot of people know about what we do and how we do it, or the revocation process. And I think it's something that would help us out with our training and accreditation in terms of hours. But I think it's also something that would help our duties as board members to get participation from defense attorneys, district attorneys, and judges.
It would be great if you could provide like what you did
Yeah, I'd be happy
last
to.
year, because that may help satisfy certain standards that I haven't really thought about.
Okay.
So I appreciate you bringing it up. Thank
Sure.
you.
And actually, Terry's kind enough, he's going to review it again and make sure I haven't messed anything up in the presentation.
Hi, so if you're going to do the second training for the facility staff that deal with the parole board, we can give suggestions to you because, there are certainly rescission hearings or something they're not aware of, and then one facility wasn't even aware of how to deport someone, or what, they kept insisting the ECPDO, we shouldn't sign the pink sheet, the CPDO, even though we were saying that's the sheet we have to sign, they were insisting that was not it, and so, there's just certain things that have fallen through the cracks there, and they probably aren't clear on.
Sure, I think if the chair decides this is something that we want to do, then we give, just like the last time, give everybody the opportunity to send in some suggestions about things that seem to be recurring problems and should be addressed.
Okay.
What I'll probably do is Lori Fisher and I will have a meeting coming up within the next few weeks with Deputy Commissioner McCoy and his new Assistant Commissioner, Ms. Van, who you may have seen her name on some of the emails that we forward from the facility post-board reports, and to talk about how they're doing generally statewide, some issues that Lori has identified that we could use, starting to use the mechanism that you actually proposed a couple meetings ago, I think for the first time, about sort of a statewide memo to staff, but with respect to their chain of command and good protocol, we're going to work it through, the top layer of program services and see how they feel about it, and then let them pass the information on to their staff across the state.
And the other thing, I think, especially now that we have Lori with us, is you and I had discussed the possibility of like some type of a guide, and then of course I had a whole lot of things go on last year, and it kind of fell by the wayside. But I think if each of the ORCs had a 10-page guide that they had on their desk and they could refer to each time to look up specific things, like Christina said, in terms of the ICE stuff, they really don't seem to have a clue what to do. You'll find open cases, and they don't really know what they're supposed to do in terms of that. And then you look in the front of the folder where they have the handwritten chrono section, and there's either nothing there or there's nothing written that we sent a letter to Livingston County regarding open case. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of fallen through the cracks, and perhaps if they had something that they could go to that easily without having to go see a video or contact someone to give them information, it might make the work go a little bit more smoothly.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit more specifically as the first item of new business about our expectations and the skill sets that Ms. Fisher brings to our work. But certainly we're counting on her to help with training, not just training internally, but our training outside of the board to improve the ability for staff to give us what we need to do our work. Is there anything else on accreditation?
Did you say, as far as training the opposite way to the staff about our needs, or bring that up a little bit later? I'll save my questions.
Okay, all right. At this point, then, we'll move forward to new business, and I want to begin by introducing two of our recent hires to the Board of Parole. Ladies, would you come up? Mm-hmm. And let's bring a couple chairs around. Bring a couple chairs around. Come on. If you would just sit one on either side, please. Thank you. Those of us who, some of us may know one or both of these individuals.
Who are these chairs?
Here, Lori, come over here, please.
The second one in the back to go back.
You'll just have to sit a little forward. That's okay.
We won't keep you here for the
Is there another
No,
one?
there's another, don't do the second one in the back.
Yeah, it'll move. It'll move. I'm good. Sure. I'm good.
All right. I want to begin by introducing Jill Faison. She's one of our new attorneys in the legal unit. And some of you may have met her as she has attended some of our interviews and met some of us. But just briefly tell us just a little bit about yourself. Nothing personal, but just the kind of work you've done before you came to us and how long you've been with us. And I know she's actually done some administrative appeal recommendations already because I've seen her initials in your work.
Well, before coming to the appeals unit, I was at the Albany County Attorney's Office as a juvenile prosecutor, handling all the juvenile delinquents and the persons in need of supervision for Albany County. Before that, I was in the Assembly as counsel to the Children and Families Committee, the Social Services Committee, and the Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Committees. So I have some legislative background, and then as a prosecutor, the criminal justice background, and I worked on the Close to Home initiative, bringing the New York City residents that were in the OCFS system back to facilities that are closer to their houses and their communities. And so far, I've really enjoyed the work here at the appeals unit, and it's been quite an experience to sit in on the boards. I did actually see one juvenile at the Brookwood boards that I had actually prosecuted, which was interesting. And I look forward to learning more about how the Parole Board conducts its work, and I'm very interested to hear about the training and sex offender management and some of the issues that are really in the public perspective at this point. So,
Thank you and welcome.
thank you.
And we've also recently brought on Lori Fisher. The official title is Executive Assistant to the Board. It has also been called Secretary to the Board of Parole over the years. And ask that you tell us a little bit about yourself for people who don't know your history.
Okay, for those who don't know, I came to Parole with a 16-year career in county, first with social services and child protective services, and then with probation. I was a juvenile probation officer, adult probation officer, and I did a lot of report writing in that position. Then I came to Parole as a facility officer and spent a great deal of time at the Parole Board doing Parole Board work. Then became promoted to supervisor, went through the merger at Franklin, was a trainer for the Compass and Case Plan, so that I would know what we were doing when we did the merger. I wanted to know where we were going and what we were doing and why. I didn't truly believe that it was going to work at first. I'm still not sure that it's all that accurate, but it's what we have, so that's what we're doing. Decided after we went through the merger that I wanted to learn guidance from the ground up, which is why I transferred to central office guidance and learned the program side of things, because I wanted to have a full background on both sides. If I was going to work in that field and lead people in that field, I wanted to know both sides. When this position came up, I really wanted to come back to the parole side, and so I felt when I took this position a month ago that I had come home. Thank you very much. I've been extremely busy since I came on board, which is how I like to be. I like to keep busy every day. I don't like downtime. I like to keep going, so this is a good position for me. I've been very busy with sex offender conditions, imposing, removing, changing, doing decisions. I'm sure you've all gotten an email from me by now saying, could you please change this, remove this, and whatnot. I look forward to working on things, training, guides for facility staff. I think they need the training and they need the guidance and the input. I did write, while I was at the guidance side, a general reference guide for community supervision, so I think we could build on that if we need to. So I look forward to being here.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say two really great hires. Known Lori for a long time, back when she was a parole officer. She assisted Jim and myself in the training over a 1.5 year period of time, so we really got to know her through that, and we're really lucky to have her on board. She's a fabulous person, fabulous professional, and really knows both the doc side and the parole side. So just have a tremendous amount of respect for her. And we've also had the opportunity to get to know Jill from the board. She's watched a couple of our boards, and she's asked phenomenal questions and given really good insights. So I feel very lucky to have you here as well. Thank you.
And then everybody has a style, even though the recommendations regarding the administrative appeals, all will have many of the same cases in them. People do have slightly different styles, and when we go to the table and we're reviewing the appealed cases and the recommendations from our attorneys, I notice different styles, and you have a unique voice, and so that's nice to see. So I'm sure we're going to continue to do very well with these two hires that we've had, and in fact, take it to another level. So I thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you don't have to sit in these uncomfortable chairs anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Victim impact meeting coverage. We have some members who are out of active service at the moment, and it causes us to have a need, particularly Suffolk, Nassau, and New York City. Commissioner Ferguson, being the lone commissioner in active duty in the New York office at the moment, has graciously agreed to try to cover as many of the Suffolk, Nassau as he can cover, for the sake of making it easier for any one of us then coming from the other offices to cover New York City. I would ask that you all let me know if for some reason you think that any particular week it would be a hardship. I may ask you in advance, or you may just see your name on a schedule. As always, just let me know if it poses a personal hardship or office duty hardship to go to New York City, but we really need your help there in at least the foreseeable future, the next couple months. And also remind you, as always, whenever you're passing through any of the offices, do what you can in terms of the paperwork that's there, the board actions, and particularly in Albany, the administrative appeals. There are 3 board members who are permanently stationed in Albany, and we've got another commissioner who comes to the Albany office on a regular basis. But whenever you're there, it would really be helpful, especially with the administrative appeals, because we want to make sure the appeals get the attention of all of us and are reviewed by all of us. And in fact, will have to be, because there are going to be cases where I may be the lead commissioner, I can't sign it, or Commissioner Hernandez may be the lead commissioner, or Commissioner Elovich. So we need to make sure we always have 3 signatures, 3 sets of eyes to review those appeals, to review the recommendations, and then to sign the appropriate decision based on your review.
Okay. One of the things I was thinking about in terms of the victim impacts, to make it easier, there's at least 1 week a month where we're having a New York City board. So maybe we could move victim impacts from Friday to Thursday and see if it would be easier for people to just stay the extra night. Because from what I've been told from everybody that comes down, to come down for a 9:30 or 9:45, you have to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning in Albany. And then after the victim impacts are done, obviously I'm the only one signing, so we're going to need at least 1 person every week to sign, so that might help. And then perhaps other weeks when there's a Fishkill or Poughkeepsie board, something similar, just so people don't have to do all that travel and work on one day and then travel back home. It might be something to consider.
Mm-hmm. I'll check with Janet and see how that might work in terms of both court reporters and and their office scheduling.
Yeah,
But
it'll
that's a
probably
good
be
suggestion.
It'll probably be easy for Janet, because then that's not a Friday for them with 20 things to do.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, of course, would be the court reporters, because a lot of them have set schedules.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I will check on that.
okay.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you all in advance for your help.
Yeah.
I would suggest, I mean, if it was my case, I don't know some of the others, but being that the numbers on New York City are lower, I would suggest later in the afternoon on Wednesday, because if you're finished at 10, 11, or 12, to just sit around, even if you do paperwork, to stay all day till the next morning and then stay the next day, I would say later in the afternoon, and I would be surprised. I mean, I think first and foremost, the priority should be the victims, and if we can schedule them in. But I'd be surprised if some victims, it wasn't easier for them to do it later in the day, because I get some victims who are actually at work, going off into a corner when I'm calling them on the phone to do a victim impact. So some of them may say, well, yeah, it's better for me to do it later in the afternoon, so I don't have to, miss work, or I can get down to the office if they're coming in person, obviously. And then even some of us who are going back later in the evening, there's always a 7 o'clock flight, I think, that you can still get, rather than stay the whole entire day, stay half the next day, and still have to get the later flight. It would be easier on Wednesday. Not just speaking for myself.
I'll quote that as well. Thank you.
And I do want to commend Janet has a real tough job trying to, as she says, the horse is already out of the barn, just trying to make sure that we're following, the same procedures with the victims or whatever. She's doing a tremendous job, and I do want to commend her for that. To make sure that, we're following the statute, and whoever's supposed to be representing the victim is doing so. And so she's doing great, so I really appreciate that, and I just want to note that on the record.
And I've noticed, too, for those impact meetings that she's in attendance, she is starting to ask the victims, and I'm not certain the rest of her staff is doing it, but I wouldn't be surprised if she's directed them to ask the victims in advance if they would give us permission, authorization to share their statements if a court were reviewing the decision, if it were a denial decision, if a court were reviewing the decision down the line, to sort of give us an advance authorization to share that information with the court. And as I suspected, many people that I have asked that question of during victim impact, or she has asked that question of, have no problem with it. And in fact, some victims don't have a problem even with a wider dissemination, even to the inmate himself or herself, because they feel that strongly about their position. They want it known publicly. And then, of course, some people choose to alert the media to a upcoming interview themselves as well. So,
is that something that they're doing prior to them talking to us, or is that an after?
well, when I have done it and when I have seen her do it, it's at the meeting itself. But again, we still have a new letter to develop that goes out to victims in advance of the meeting, giving them some general guidelines, information, and that kind of information can also be put in the letter.
This way we don't, when we're doing the interview, I don't know if I'm supposed to ask. I know we had an issue before. I think it worked out. But, if we forget, it would be better if they're prepped in advance with that letter to say also if you're agreeable to sharing your information if it, is deemed necessary by the court or whatever way it's put together. Them knowing all that would almost take it off of us to have to even ask them.
Right.
Victim services would go in advance. Should there be a lawsuit, we already have to be okay, or whatever it may be.
Can I make a suggestion that Janet maybe set up maybe a conference call with you guys? Because I feel like we're getting, because she's here with us, so we've been doing things with her that perhaps it hasn't gone out west for you guys to know enough about. Because one of the reasons we're now looking at the victim impact and making sure that we're very precise and accurate is because we have judges who are now criticizing that part of it. And we don't want to victimize the victims anymore. Then they're already victimized, having to come in and give victim impact statements every 2 years in some cases. So we're telling them, just so you know, we're letting them know what's going on with some of the court cases and the reason why we're now tightening up on who can provide that statement in person. People can write in, anyone can write in a victim impact statement, but those who on the record can provide us with a statement, we're telling them why this is happening and why we're...
I do that all the time, now especially, but I'm saying I think it would be easier than spending that time explaining it to the person for the first time. Victim services, they're setting these things up well in advance, that the person has a general understanding of it already, and we're not starting out fresh, because then they're saying to me, like, what are you talking about?
I can tell you from experience that they'll tell you they never talked to Janet. I'm just letting you know, because I've had this happen during victim, and I know for a fact because I've had a conversation with her prior to doing a victim, and I've had victims to say to me that they had no idea what I'm talking about, and that they were never notified, where Janet has told me she spent a long time discussing the issue.
But the beauty of the letter is we've got the record.
It at least plants the seed and says, this is something. I don't mind explaining it. It just makes it easier when they've already heard it once. And I've had people say, well, I never talked to them. I don't even have their phone number. I say, well, how did you call me? So I'm just saying, I think the letter would be the best idea. Just at least get it out, plant the seed that this is something that you can do by signing off. And if we have to explain it. I don't mind doing it. It just, the couple times that I did, it took more time than the interview itself, than the whole statement, because they were totally unclear about why it was important, or what we were talking about. So,
Thank you, Commissioner.
Also,
Yes.
I had the same thing. Almost every time I've been told they don't know who can speak and who can't. And we do spend quite a bit of time on the front end going over that. That really needs to be reiterated. Who's coming? You get a room full of 6, 8 people. They all think they're going to speak. And you want to be rude, but someone's got to tell them that. And also having people reappear. I had a family in a couple weeks ago. This is the 3rd time I've seen them in 6 months because there's 3 co-defendants, equally charged, equally sentenced, and they have to keep coming back for each of the defendants' reappearances before the court. And they're just about wore out from repeatedly coming in. And I've told them, it's going to be consolidated to one statement. Again, they're never told that. And it's just...
It seems like some are and some may not, because I've had cases recently where it was clear at the start that they were giving statements for 2 different co-defendants. But again, that's something that has to be on the record, and it has to be clear so that the appropriate facilities get copies of those statements in each of the offenders' names.
I told them that, and it doesn't seem to happen.
So,
like I say, they're wore out coming in again.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Thank you.
Anything else on victim impact? Okay. All right. The next item should be an interesting topic for discussion. As it turns out, one of the perks of seniority is that you are always commissioner number 1 on our 3-panel or 2-person panels. I call it laughingly a perk because it also comes with responsibilities. You set the tone for that week's interviews of the facilities that are being interviewed. You do introductions. You handle the administrative pieces. You discuss confidentiality with newcomers to the process. You manage the presence of the individuals on both sides of the camera. Sometimes you even work the remote. And last but not least, you do the reports that we generate for our own information, as well as the information of doc staff on how the boards went. And that's a lot to do week after week, and it tends to be the most senior members usually in that lead role. And so I wondered if it might be worth considering rotating that somehow. And so I just throw that general proposition out there for discussion. And if that's something people are interested in, how we might accomplish that and on what basis and how frequent.
Well, James and I, this wasn't our idea, was it?
No.
It's a good idea.
No, it was not.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Just one item that I had. I would probably not mind entertaining it. I think it's good. Every so often, if we have a change of a board, for example, Commissioner Alovich, she'll have already done the work, and then they switch, and I may become senior to her, and I think it's wonderful that the work's already done. So, I think it would be a decent idea. I actually thought about it on the way in after I read the agenda. You could set it up that any board that begins, 1 through 10, if it's March 8th, that's 1 through 10, that goes to the first, to the most senior. Those boards 11 through 20 could always be to the second most senior, and those 21 to 30 could be third. So, but there's other ways, I'm sure, but just the concept.
That concept went right out over my head. Okay, so I'm not following.
In other words, if you...
I got a simpler solution.
But James,
yes, I've not only thought about this, I've dreamed about this moment. Besides everything that you've mentioned as well, of course, as number one, you get inundated with questions throughout the day, and you're trying to prepare your work. And as number one, if you've got 5 facilities, and these facilities have 1 case or 4 cases, you're always getting a couple of extra cases more than anyone else. And then if there's a case that's a special, there's an issue where it's just added on, and the case dumped on you. So it's a lot of work. I think if we just switch to number 2 handling it, you and I will almost never have that. I think Commissioner Elovich and Hernandez will almost never have it. And now, by switching to number 2, I think you're going to see the majority of the other commissioners that didn't have it, instead of doing a complicated formula, and see how that works out. The other thing, of course, is as number 1, you still don't lose the input. You can still ask the commissioner, would you mind writing X, Y, and Z in your notes or in your report?
Like a secretary taking the notes and then reporting it out. I mean, right? Is that what you know how you go to meetings or whatever? You have a secretary who writes the notes down if you're part of like the PTA or something. Is somebody
or even jot down a note and give it to the person to do. So there's. You'll still have the input from the most senior person, but it's just one less thing to do, because setting up the boards, and you've heard me gripe about this before, calling up 5 places, and they're not here, they'll call you back, and, by now, when our officers used to have this ready 2 weeks in advance, we are still, and I wrote my last post-board report, the day of the board, people still coming in with stacks of paper and just sticking it in the file. Yeah. So now we're sorting through all this, when we don't have time to do that, to find the relevant documents. So I think it's something that would be really helpful. And in terms of the scheduling, it gets a little complicated. So that's one more thing you're rushing and trying to do. So not having to do the report, and I think my 2 reports ago, I lost my notes. So then I finally found them under the seat of my car and sent that report out late. But it'd be one less thing to do, and I, for one, would be grateful. I think it would be helpful.
As I envision it, everyone would come into the rotation. So I don't envision it that it will then be the 1s by seniority or the 2s by seniority, but 1, 2, and 3 will have an opportunity in the course of a month or a period of time to be leads in some of the panels that they are on, so that truly everybody has the experience of doing it, and that it balances out the workload for everyone, week after week. Did you want to say something else?
And I know Commissioner Hernandez wanted to say something.
No, go ahead.
Do you want to go first? You're senior.
Oh, get out of here. No, that's Jim's title.
And I didn't seniority. First of all, Commissioner Sharkey asked me, since he couldn't be here today, he had a couple of items that he wanted me to bring up for him. One of them was this, and he is not in favor of this. And I think that I kind of agree with him on this, and for the reason that the senior person really is in the best position to know the issues, because they've been there the longest, they've had the seniority and the experience, and not that Commissioners 2 and 3 are not capable of giving very good input, but I think that generally the senior person, because of their experience, is in the best position to do the report. Now, that being said, our reports are not rocket science. They're not very long. They're pretty brief. And although I'm speaking against my own interest, because I usually have Commissioner number 1 in the panel, I do feel that the senior commissioner is in the best position.
And speaking from somebody who's always three, unless we work together occasionally. I think, I always try to catch the papers, at least do that, because I do recognize that one has the bulk of other administrative duties. But, personally speaking, I think the post-board report could certainly be passed on to somebody else. Somebody does pre-work for the content. So, yeah, I would agree with that, rocket science.
And just so you know, too, one of the things that Lori Fisher and I are hoping to accomplish is a new process that would take you all out of the role of having to do that pre-board shuffle, phone calls, line up, and we're hopeful that that's going to happen. It won't be overnight. It probably won't be by next month's boards, but it's coming. We're very hopeful of that, and I don't see any good reason why. The ideas that Mr. Fisher has presented and actually put in writing, and it's now with DOC supervisory staff, why it shouldn't work. But in the meantime, it's going to continue as it has been with the pre-board work, which is considerable. And I didn't even mention that among the reasons why. But anyone else? Something?
I tend to think there should be some rotation. I had a conversation with Ed Sharkey, and I too want to reinforce that he's opposed. He asked me to convey that. Clearly, the senior people, I put myself in this category. Well, we have no monopoly on expertise. We have no monopoly on talent. There's talent across this whole board of Parole. And I think that there should be some division of labor here. Like perhaps the senior should do the planning for the coming week. The post-board report could be done by somebody else to start off with. I write in a certain style. I see things my way. That necessarily colors how I write, how I think about something. That's just the way it is. I don't know why everybody should have to deal with that every time I'm a senior. The talent is out there. Let's use the talent that we have. Why not cultivate them?
Recognizing we're down a few of our members, I think we could still put this to a vote. Certainly we have a quorum. Is there any appetite to vote on the issue, and then if it passes, to continue to look at mechanisms for how we might do it? And if there is an appetite for that, is there a motion?
You mean approve the concept,
right?
Subject to a subsequent board vote.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Approve at least investigating how it could work. Yeah.
Can I make one further comment before
Please.
we vote? I think some of the things that Jim said we should really think about. The most senior person there does tend to get the most cases. And I've done mostly. I've been Commissioner 2 or 3, but I've also been Commissioner 1 a lot. And I think there's something to be said for the most senior person starting the day and having the most cases. They're better about reading quicker, dealing with more cases. That's something you learn over time. I'm better at doing it now than I was a year ago, but I think there may be some unintended consequences. And I'm wondering, doing the post-board report it's not that hard. And I don't see why that shouldn't be rotated, but I'm not sure I'm necessarily excited about the other part of that proposal. I also think that more senior members tend to understand the timing a bit better. I mean, I think we all understand it, but they may not like how I control the timing. Maybe I don't want to work till 11 at night, so it's one of these things where you better be careful what you wish for. And I think there's more to this proposal, but so I would recommend that we start with rotating the post-board report as a first step and see maybe how it goes, or some sort of baby step first before we throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Okay, call on Commissioner Little, and then I'll come back to Commissioner.
Okay, well, there's another aspect to this. It's called future planning. And perhaps in about 3 years or less, you're going to see the senior members' terms expire, some of whom may be leaving the board. And time goes very fast, especially in this job. I found that out. You know more turnaround, and it's Thursday morning again. That's right. You know more turnaround, it's next month, next year. Okay? So it won't be long with those seniors who some of us say have all the talent, might be leaving the board. And those with less seniority may find themselves in that number one spot a lot quicker than what they think.
That's a good point.
Succession.
Yes, succession planning.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I could give up because I am a control freak sometimes, depending on what it is.
No.
I think I could part with doing the post-board report because I just kind of get it out of the way. I just do it because that is something that I think I could give up. Because Lorraine used to do the setting up of the board for us, and then when, then we were put in that position where we started calling. So I kind of have enjoyed, because I'm getting to know the people who are doing the panels. They're getting to know me. So it really hasn't been a big deal for me to call them on a Thursday when, and I love when Kevin says when you can get them. And plus I got to know Chris Walcott much better, setting up all the court reporters and having to do that. So I don't know if that's just part of my, DNA of being organized and being busy. But I hear what Kevin is saying because it's true. I mean, we all were number 3 at one point, when we first came on this job, and it is important to understand and learn how to do everything that we do. And number 1 does do a lot. And so I don't know. I'm on the fence with the whole thing. I mean, I want to do what's best for us collectively. And I like your suggestion as far as doing maybe rotating the reports to start out with and see where we go.
Yeah, baby steps in terms of, because I think about other things too that I guess it's happenstance with the rescissions, but the de novos usually are always done by 1. So maybe there are some baby steps that we can take rather than completely rotating.
And we need to update that rescission report that we use.
I mean, I think everybody has some good suggestions here, but I think Kevin's point is particularly salient. None of us are paid more. None of us are, have authority over the other person. There's absolutely no reason that each one of us should not be fulfilling the same responsibilities. I think there's absolutely no question. I think you'd probably get every commissioner to agree that without the people that have been around here for a long time, there'd be a bit of anarchy on the boards if whenever all the new people started, there were not a bunch of senior people here. Because it literally, I think, takes a good 2 to 3 years for you to deal with the majority of the situations that come up and answers. And now we no longer have the staff. When I first started, I can't even tell you how many times we would go over to the facility officer, what the hell is this and what do we do with it? And you got an answer right away. They're all gone. So with them all gone and just us, the dinosaurs that have been here for a while, that institutional knowledge is important. So it's important to break in the other commissioners in that area as soon as possible. Everybody said writing these reports isn't rocket science. It's something that can be passed on. In terms of what Christina was saying and setting up the boards, the only issue I have, I only have issues with inefficient use of time. I'm in the New York City office. It's the busiest, if not at least a very busy office. So we all know we have to do work. I hate wasted time. So me coming in and trying to call 5 people and then get transferred 5 times and then somehow now doing this for 3 years, 4 years, they still don't know that by Thursday they should be able to say, Commissioner, you've got 5 postponements, 3 refusals, 2 Spanish interpreters, and 1 sign language interpreter. They got to find someone to track down the file. So now it's a couple of hours before you can get this email out. That's what I take issue with. If they were all told that Wednesday, 12 o'clock, you You find out who the senior person is. You're the SORC handling this case. You email that commissioner, this is the breakdown of our cases. So now I read 5 emails. I compose my own email after I decide who's going first and whatever, and then send that out. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's just the inefficient use of time, tracking people down who either are not there or you get a call back 3 hours later. And it's inconvenient. But in terms of these reports, they're not rocket science, as everybody said. Anybody can do these reports. Commissioner 1 is still going to be there, still making suggestions as to what should be in the report. And then Commissioner 1 is also going to be reviewing the report. And on a few occasions, I've seen people add, oh, by the way, in addition, this situation occurred or this issue came up that wasn't mentioned in the report. So passing this on, and instead of doing a complex rotation schedule, just let it be number 2, because that'll be the next most senior person. And as we go into this area now where Bill can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we are in right now with Commissioner Halliday now probably the lowest number we've ever had, which means our boards are going to be much more intense, probably going over into Thursdays. And I think the more that we can do to try to make this work cohesively, it'd make more sense.
Okay. So with all that being said on the table, does someone make a motion?
Motion to table.
I'm not leave it on the table, but is there a motion, even on the baby step approach, to rotate the report? And again, I would prefer to see it rotated to everyone, not just the twos.
Which report?
Post-board.
I would make a motion to rotate the post-board report out of the Commissioner 1 slot.
Okay. I second that.
How do you rotate it though?
Well, again,
Commissioners
we're
2 and
gonna.
Can we ask at the board? Do we have to put it down as a schedule? Can we just say ask 2 and 3? Which one of you want to
We're
do it?
going to have a lot more, just 1 and 2 boards.
That's right.
So-
Okay. All right.
But that wouldn't be a bad idea, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. And then that way it's done.
I disagree and agree with a whole lot of things that were said. But one thing is important, I think, is what Kevin said the most, and something that Jim said. First of all, institutional knowledge is invaluable. When you come on to a board, I've been in situations where I had to take charge, and without knowing what was going on before, it's an awesome responsibility. All of us, even Commissioner Smith, who was never senior, probably won't be if we don't do this, I still think she could step right in and do it. It's not that difficult. It's time consuming on the front end sometimes. I don't care about the post-board report. That's easy. The calling facilities, the fact that every time I make a phone call, that person no longer works at that facility, and now I'm going, well, who's the person? And they're going, oh, well, she won't be back for another couple hours. You want her to call you back, or she's on vacation till next week. I mean, come on, leave a note with somebody and say, if the board members call, here it is. So that is more, I think, of a docs issue than even our own situation. And since you said Lori's going to be working on it, that's good.
She's already got an outline of a new system regarding the noteworthy report and the pre-board report.
Because we don't.
Been sent
that's
already.
more frustrating to find out who am I supposed to call, because every time I get that list, I'm telling you, by the time I email that statewide list, it's old. Even if it was last week, that person generally doesn't work there anymore, and they're at a new facility. So that's frustrating. So but as we put this also into training, it is important that every committee, I've done it, so it doesn't matter to me. We can do whatever we want. I care less. But I think it is important that every single member be trained at least to be able to do it if they need to do it. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I found that we have a little bit of a problem, because we have the experts like Jim and Bill, who probably know remote control in their head. Ellen and I had a board together. Both of us, I think, very capable. But on the doc side, this was what I was going to bring up, somebody called in sick. So we get there that morning, and there's a woman sitting in the corner. Now, we don't know who she is. She doesn't know who she is. She's sitting in the corner. We come to find out she's there to the board. Ellen says to her, did you call to link us up? She said, call who? She had no idea. So Ellen said, well, why are you here? She said, they just told me to come. So she And nice person, she's an ORC, she had never done it, was only told to show up, didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to work the remote. None of us knew what to do. We were really in a jam, and Ellen, I think, might have put it on the report. Was it Edgecombe? The guy from Edgecombe that showed up had no cases, but stayed the whole day and took care of it all. If it weren't for him, we really would have been in the jam because neither of us on either side or anybody in the room knew how to even work the remote or the system. So I will agree that and I've asked Bill this before, he taught me, but I forgot. The remote is actually very important. It seems simple, but it's not.
There's the new one.
Now there's a new one, and I don't know. So even the board members need to be trained so that if something happens, we know how to work the system if the staff doesn't. But I do think there's value in that, and I also think that part of the rotation for a while, even if it sunsets, it could be really considered training. So that at least when you do need to step in, where there's not chaos, you know what you're doing, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Because to be honest with you, the majority of board members I work with, senior or not, they always say when we're finished, do you have anything you want to add to the post-parole? Bill always said, something you want to add? You know, it's not, this isn't, you know, a dictatorship that number one, you know, dictates everything. If we have something to add, they have something to add, we're all equal. But for the sake of administratively, yes, somebody does have to take the lead. So I think it's a good idea that everybody do it in rotation. I would disagree with my colleague, Mr. Sharkey, that you know, if he thinks that the senior member really knows that much more, it's not always the case because I've been senior with him and he disagrees with what I decide. So, and I think that's good. I think that's good. Jim and I have little disagreements all the time, and you know, he's senior, but that doesn't mean I don't get my say. The thing with the extra cases, though, that's where I'm a little confused. I don't believe there's that many extra cases. It should only be one. The thing with de novos and everything else,
typically that's what it is.
All the time.
The de novos.
It doesn't always go to that member unless that member is taking them. But when you get one extra case, I mean, when they spread out the cases, and maybe Lori, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but toward the end, it does wind up 1 or 1, 2, and the third commissioner gets one less case. So it's not like they're getting 5 extra cases.
Well,
unless you're asking for them, I don't know how that happens. So, but I think it is more important that everybody be trained, do it a couple of times. Maybe we could do this for a couple of months in a training mode and use it toward accreditation, being trained to run the board.
Yes.
if you do end up with one extra at most facilities, if there's 5 facilities in that board, you will get 5 extra. You could get 5 extra. So you do a little bit more, but that's...
But you're more senior, you're better at it.
Right, but I think everyone's very talented. I will agree with what's been said before. I think everybody could do it. It is, the pre-board's what takes a lot of time and can be frustrating. I think we all, if you have something to add to the post-board, we all, have input with that. I think it's a great idea because, quite frankly, it is a lot of work. But it's nothing that is that difficult. It's more time.
Tuesdays among the 2 or 3 people. If it's not 1, obviously it's going to be 2. But if there are 3, asking the group, okay, who's got the report this week?
I think you need someone who can assign it, because if you ask and everybody says, "I don't want to do it," then it's back to 1. So does one have?
Somebody's got to take it.
Right, and it's like with anything else that happens at the board. If nobody else wants to take it, and you're number 1, you're doing it. If it's a paper case that someone doesn't understand why we have to have conditions on this, they bring it to number 1.
That's not consistent. I would think that it has to be pre-decided. That's not consistent. When I work with you, Bill, and nobody wants to do it, you take it. When I work with Jim says, "No, you're doing it. I decide." Yeah. So, I mean that negatively, but he had said he assigns work. Well, that's what he assigns. He and I have discussions about this. But you do it differently than he does. So right. I don't think deciding on Tuesday would be healthy, because I think at the end of the day, if I'm working with Jim for 5 times and he's constantly assigning it to me, I'm going to get upset about it. I think it should be pre-decided in a rotation. Who's going to do the post board? Putting one person in charge of I'm assigning it to you. I think that's unfair even to that person.
I think that's a very good point.
And
we should not be injecting any discomfort at the start of Tuesday. with a volunteer system. That's not.
Because we know we can all get on each other's nerves as the time goes
Well,
on.
you want to get off on the foot, especially on Tuesday morning, the first thing.
Okay.
So yes, I agree that it should be predetermined. If you want number 2 to do the post board, then so be it.
It's gotta be pretty.
And all the ones
Somebody's
are
gotta start
available to
taking
help.
notes and getting the names, and it's gotta be decided.
Well, we're not doing the names anymore. The names are being handled by the facility, which is great. That was something I complained about also.
Yeah,
But
if you notice, when you get your post-board reports from the facility, they have all that in there, so you really don't have to.
so what you're really doing now
You don't
is just basically addressing any issues that
A lot
come
of
up
us, yeah.
or any compliments that come up. So I think, particularly in light of the fact that we are probably going to have a significant increase in 2-person boards, it's probably just easiest on a trial basis to just say number 2 is going to do it, which means most of us who've been number 1 forever will not have to do it anymore, and the number 2 thing is going to rotate into people who would normally be 3. I guess see how that works, and then if it needs further tweaking, then maybe we should tweak it then.
You want to make a motion?
Absolutely. I move that we have Commissioner number 2 be responsible for writing a post-board report on a trial basis
Effective.
tomorrow.
All right, because you're number 2 on our board.
Yeah.
Wait, did I say tomorrow?
You did. As your attorney, I will advise you, you said that.
Next week.
Effective St. Patrick's Day.
It's a good day to start at St. Patrick's Day.
Might as well, yeah. Okay,
I'll second the motion.
okay.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
When's it effective?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
And I do want to make a request, make sure you spell everybody's
Screwed
name
myself.
correctly. Okay?
And if you're not sure, you can call the
Yes,
office.
call Talissa.
We'll look it up for you.
Okay.
All right.
You say that we're not, in the post-board report, we're not putting names in anymore, of all the ORCs?
No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. We will be.
So then why are we still taking their names on both sides?
We were, I was
For the
still.
stenographer. The
stenographer
has to
does-
know
yeah,
who's
she-
present in the
yeah,
room,
they
so
do
she
know.
needs a
Oh, but
constant.
now, in the post-board report, we're not adding that.
You don't have to.
No. The only time we'll do the names, I don't know if the rest of you are doing this, but I've been finding an increasing number of unqualified, not a decreasing, which I would have hoped for by now, but an increasing number of unqualified interpreters. We just had someone last week.
Not qualified.
The week before. But, so those names I've been writing down that this person should not be. Because, if it's obvious to us that this person is not adequately conveying the information to someone, they're being prejudiced, and we always want fair and above board, so I'll put the name in the report. I don't know what effect, if any, that's having. I know we're sending them to the depths, and I hope the
I
depths
think
are...
it does have value. But to that point, then, if there's someone you want to commend, that would be the use of a name, in that instance, too. So that's the motion that's on the table. It has been seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote.
I'm just so people understand my vote. I'm going to vote against that because I actually think that rotating it so 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3, all the way down, it's being done more equitably. I'm very rarely number 2. I'm either sometimes 1 or 3. I think that in that role, we don't get to the training part because now we've just shifted it from 1 to 2. Right? And then also, we didn't get it down to, say, for instance, Julie or Ed or Gail when she does come in. So now they're not.
Well, I could say this, too.
Weeks 1 and 2, weeks number 2, weeks 3 and 4, number 3, and if there's no number 3,
back to the
it
original
goes to
Ferguson.
2.
There is an amendment.
I like that.
To the proposed.
Wasn't that the original Smith?
There is an
Yes.
amendment to the
That's what Phil
proposed.
said in the beginning.
That's the original Smith.
Okay, what was it?
No, but that was for a much bigger proposal. This is just for writing the post-board.
Okay, say that
report.
again. What do we?
So for weeks 1 and 2, Commissioner number 2 is responsible for the post-board report. Weeks 3 and 4, it would be Commissioner number 3. If there's no Commissioner 3, it's Commissioner 2.
Do you accept the amendment, the proposed
I'll have
amendment
to confer with
your
my
motion?
counsel.
I think it's a good deal.
Good deal, should take it. Okay, we've agreed, we will accept it.
And is your second still standing?
Sounds like a good deal.
Okay, now, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. All right. So the motion is carried. starting tomorrow, Commissioner 2 will do the post-board report. Where are we? Are we in week 2 or 3? So, okay, so it'll be Commissioner 3. Starting tomorrow.
And if there's no Commissioner 3, it's 10.
That's right.
Lisa, you're off the hook tomorrow.
What's that?
I think I was number 2.
She's 3. Senior, next senior, he's senior.
It's number 2, right? What did I tell you in my email? I don't remember. But whatever it was, that's what it is.
Because you know how you're supposed to.
I think I said I would be
That's a
2.
good idea. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Actually, that's
So, anyway, the
Maybe
motion is carried. We'll go forward and we'll figure out where we stand when we have a break in the action. Okay, the next item, other policies, procedures, and directives. I'm going to pass around a couple things. Keep one here. All right, the first thing that's coming around is the informative directive on our board. It's the most, it would be the first directive in series 8600. If there are some to follow, they will immediately follow. They will be about the Board of Parole, but this is the most basic. It has been vetted by DOC's staff that reviews directives, and now it's in our hands to add, to change in any way we think is appropriate. I would ask that you take this week to take a look at it. If you have any suggestions, any recommendations, if you would get back to me by email by Friday, close of business, I'd appreciate it, and then Terry and I can button it up and get it back, and it will be official. So that's that.
So Chair, just so you know, for accreditation purposes, this removes some of that responsibility from you, right?
At a glance, it appears as though this is taking statutory language and putting it into rulemaking.
No. What this is just describing the board for the purpose of a directive. That's all it is. Just like if you look at the directives, you'll see that every facility has a directive, just describing the facility, like what programs are available at Fishkill, what type of facility, max, medium, whatever. It's just an informational overview of the facility. And every unit, I imagine, in DOCS probably has a similar directive that outlines the unit and the work of the program. So this is our basic overview of basically of our structure and our governing statutes.
Parameters.
Yeah.
Now, who is the issuing authority here? Commissioner?
I will be. I will be. So.
Most recently, the last website is 15.
I'm sorry.
Most recently, the last website said we are 15 members. Checking the NYS.
Oh, that's not right. I mean, the statute says the statute still says 19. So we will. Right. Right. I mean, that's what it is. That's what it'll have to be, even though in reality, at the moment, we're at 14 max. Okay, so by Friday, close of business, any comments, I would appreciate it, because we're going to need to tie this up. I've been having this for a while, and I need to finish it. This item, I'd actually like to vote on at the next board meeting. As certainly Commissioner Ludlow knows, this board was in the process prior to my joining it in the summer of 2013 of updating its manual items. I don't know if they'll stay in this form or be better served becoming directives, or if we'll just have our own little policy manual. But at the very least, we need to keep the process going of updating old Division of Parole items, given the merger and given the new structure of DOCS overall. So this is one such item that was kind of hanging out from the time of the merger that needed to be updated as of September 11th that just never got a vote. So I'd like you to take the time to our next business meeting to review this, and actually we'll have a vote on it. It will be helpful to the Bureau of Adjudication because it's specifically dealing with the issue of requests seeking review of a preliminary or final revocation hearing. Our chief administrative law judge reports to me every time someone from the field in particular, or even a revocation specialist takes issue with a decision of our ALJs, and there has to be a mechanism that's formalized for them to do it in an appropriate way. And this outlines the last best practice that we were suggesting to be followed. And I know ALJ Saunders, Chief Saunders, would be very happy if we have this in writing so that doc staff can be made aware of it and that he can refer to it when people, have questions about a decision either from the preliminary hearing officers or the hearing officers that he supervises.
So who will be reviewing the chief ALJ?
Reviewing this?
Reviewing the decisions of the ALJs, the chief ALJ?
Well, read the policy. It's been a while since I've reviewed it. What he's proposing, or what this is proposing, is the protocol to be followed. Basically, that you just can't call up and say, the decision was, not the best decision, but that, you have to wait for the record to be created so that it can be reviewed. Whatever the record was, that it can be reviewed prior to him or someone else, following up on it.
And if I can, you'll understand this, Commissioner, from your days as an administrative law judge. This addresses those instances when, let's say, you were presiding as the ALJ, and the revocation specialist went back to his or her unit and said, "You will not believe what happened at that final hearing. Commissioner or administrative law judge Ferguson was this, that, and the other thing." And then all of a sudden they start calling the chairwoman or somebody else making this formalizes that process, so it doesn't become a runaway freight train. And it's in fairness to the ALJ and all the parties concerned that you let the proper paperwork be created, and you let the proper individuals take a look at it first before it gets out of hand.
Right, and formalization of it is much better than what has been done in the past, because that just creates a lot of discontent.
What it's like.
The only thing I would ask is, and you would be the person to answer this, is by providing a specific method for some type of appellate action that's only available to the PVU staff and it's not available to the defendant, does that create some type of legal issue? Or since they have the right to do an Article 78, does that mitigate and mean they have an avenue of an appeal?
They already have their avenue. They already have their avenue through the administrative appeal process or through the possibility of pursuing a habeas corpus proceeding. Whereas there's nothing in procedure currently that allows the PVU unit or anyone, even an ALJ for that matter, to have something looked at internally. This goes more toward how things were done, not outcome, but how things were done, how people comported themselves. This should also be considered. Or as we consider this, we should also consider this through the paradigm of the eyes of the ALJ, how they can bring to the attention of department staff something that they perceived to be inappropriate on the part of department staff in prosecuting the case or department staff in testifying at the case, so that it can be looked at and appropriate measures can be taken.
But providing an in-house remedy for one party and not the other is
not problematic at all. Not problematic at all.
And then there's going to be a formalized, is this going to be like just a conversation between the PVU person and the staff members? Is there going to be like a specific report or a formatted procedure for it to be?
This calls for a procedure to be followed and a reporting procedure.
So review it, please, and be prepared to vote on it at our next meeting. Okay. All right. I don't have anything else at this time. And nothing to report, God bless you, by way of correspondence, announcement, and invitations. So, without further ado, is there a motion to enter into executive session to discuss otherwise confidential or privileged material?
I vote that we enter into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ferguson. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.